Welcome back to Made for More. I am your host, Holly J. Moore. I'm a divorce lawyer who is passionate about helping all of us to use the adversity and difficult things in our life to help us grow, reach our fullest potential, and show up as the very best version of ourselves. I am joined today and every day with my producer, Aaron Bender.
You've talked before about how this podcast has become therapy for you. It's become, for me, in many ways, therapy as well, but an encyclopedia. I'm trying to... Every episode, I feel like I learn something new. Yes,
totally.
And like new practices, new jobs. You know, I didn't know before this podcast there was a divorce coach, a divorce recovery coach. We've got one on the show today. An NLP, a Neuro-Linguistic Practitioner.
Programmer. Programming.
Something, yeah. I had no idea. So there's two things there. I'd like to know more what an NLP is.
Oh, I'll ask her.
And... secondly, what's the over-under on how quickly you'll slip into that Australian accent she's about to
you know
bless us with?
You know I love a good accent, but I don't really have an Australian one. I can only do an English one.
You will by the end of the show.
Excellent. We are joined today by Libby Finlayson, a health and relationship coach. Libby, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Holly. Great to be here.
Yes. Oh no, I feel it coming on already. I have to warn you. I'm already doing it. When I talk to someone with a beautiful accent, I start slipping into an accent as well. Okay. I'm going to try to, keep my American...
I haven't heard many people say that Australians have beautiful accents, so that's great to hear.
Oh yeah. I think it's beautiful. Libby, we are going to jump right in because something in your bio really just stood out to me so much. And so I want to just jump right into it. It says, starting out as a health coach, Libby soon realized that everyone who needed help with health had relationship problems.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So as you probably would have seen or read, I was divorced.
Yes.
And through that journey of leaving being a farmer and my life that I had to reinvent a new life, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I've always been really healthy, fit, that kind of thing. And people used to say to me, how are you doing everything you do? I'd be running up and down the street with my nude child on a scooter behind me and everything because I'd moved to suburbia. And they were like, how do you have so much energy? How do you do what you do? And how are you doing this on your own? And for me, I didn't think that was anything. It was normal. It was like, this is just what I do. It's how I do it. And it's like, well, what do you do about your health? Or how healthy are you? And so that journey turned me into a health coach. But then as I started getting clients, nearly every client I had that wanted to get healthier, lose weight, etc., had some major relationship issues going on. And when I spoke to them about their relationship, I go, how's your relationship, and with your husband or your wife or whatever? And they'd be like, oh, yeah, no, good. And then about 3 or 4 sessions in, it would be like, actually, we're going through this, we're going through that, I don't have a libido. And it just kept spiraling. Yeah. And what I found was the correlation between people's health and the health of their relationship had a big impact. So if their relationship was struggling, it impacted their health.
Right. Yeah.
And if it was the other way around where their relationship was good but their health was struggling and they were putting on weight and they had no self-confidence, after a while that was really impacting their relationship.
Right.
So,
okay.
yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah. So I've always just been such a firm believer in, the connection between emotional things going on in our lives and physical things going on in our lives. So that's why this was particularly interesting to me. Is it a chicken and egg situation where one definitely precedes the other, or it kind of toggles? Sometimes it's the health that deteriorates first and that leads to relationship issues, and then vice versa, or what say you on that?
Yeah, look, I think it's both. I think it is sometimes it's the health and that leads to the relationship issues, and sometimes it's the other way around. I know a girl that I helped who was really struggling in her relationship, had no confidence left, was feeling sort of beaten down all the time by her husband. Not that he was trying to be mean to her, but he would come in the house and just criticize everything the whole time. So she felt constantly criticized. And so she sort of stopped looking after herself. And then she put on weight. And then, you know, she was feeling bad about herself, and she was eating crappy food, and, you know, and she found love in her kids. And so she was putting all her attention to that and not putting any attention on herself.
Right.
And always feeling nervous that she was going to get criticised and that she wasn't good enough. And so her health deteriorated. And in other instances, I found that someone comes to me going, you know, I don't know what's going on. I've put on weight. I'm feeling unhealthy and whatever. And she would say, you know, and it's been a couple of years now and I keep putting on weight and my husband keeps telling me that I'm still beautiful, but I don't feel beautiful, and I don't have a libido, and I don't want to touch him because I feel gross. And then so then she's losing the affection for him, and then that comes out and he says, what's wrong with you? You know, what's happening with you, and why aren't you loving me? And it becomes about she's not loving herself.
Right.
So, yeah, it's usually one or the other, and then the other one sort of has a downward slide with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you help people, you know, that find themselves in that? Do you have to fix, quote unquote, fix one thing before you fix the other? Or how do you best help people in that scenario?
Yeah, good question. It depends on the person and how much they can do at a time. So I mainly help them to focus on their self-confidence and getting healthy. And then while they're doing that process, I teach them relationship tools and the ways to talk to their partner again that open up conversation and open up love and intimacy, and to remind them that even if they've put on weight or they're not feeling great about themselves or they've lost their self-confidence, if their husband or wife, whichever one it is, still thinks they're beautiful and loves them and wants to have sex with them and wants to show them some affection, let it in and don't shy away from it because you don't feel like they love you. Because the question I ask is, have they told you? Have they told you they don't want affection with you? Have they told you that they don't want to be with you or they don't find you attractive or any of that? And normally the answer is no, they've never said that.
Right.
So... yeah, I think really it's depending on if they come to me with relationship issues, we usually work on that first, and then we go, so how's your health going? And they go, yeah, I feel like shit, you know, like it's so it just depends on what situation they're coming to me in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you work with more of one gender over the other?
No, I'm not gender specific. I mean, I've always sort of advertised towards women, but I seem to help a lot of men, especially men that are divorced. There's a lot of men that come to me that are going through a divorce. And it might just be because I'm a country girl and they resonate with that because a lot of them are farmers. And I think they just resonate with me. I've always had a lot of male mates, you know, good friends that are blokes. And, you know, I've been through a divorce. I've got a partner. Like, I think they just resonate with, if they're going to talk to a girl, they want someone that understands their world and their life. And for some reason, I'm just very good with men.
Okay.
Not in that way, but in that way.
Well, maybe in that way too.
in that way too. I did do a lot of fun dating, I must say, when I was divorced. I started the dating game. I did date a lot of men. It was fun.
Does this, you know, the connection between health and relationships and sort of needing help in those arenas, do you think it affects men differently than women? Or do you find this is pretty much like there's patterns that are there that are not, you know, gender specific? It's the same for everyone.
There's definitely patterns there that are not gender specific. There is, they are different though. Men, we're dealing with a lot of emotion that's stuck. Men, there's a lot of things like anger, guilt, the fact that they've been trying to do the same thing to impress their dad. You know, that I'm coaching a 50-year-old man, and there's still issues from them trying to be what they're trying to be to impress their family. Or there's a lot of that comes out during divorce. With women, there's a lot of emotion coming out all the time. You know,
Yeah.
we're emotional beings. So,
Right.
you know, the women will cry, and I mean, the men do cry with me when I'm coaching them, but the women are very much like there's emotions everywhere, and I'm going through menopause and whatever it
Yeah.
might be, you know, and it's like,
Right.
I've lost my libido, and like happy, sad kind of,
Yeah.
whereas men, it's like stuck in them.
Yeah.
And so it's about bringing that out and allowing them to show that vulnerability and that emotion, and to be able to go, oh, okay, now I can actually do something about this. Yeah. So it's quite different. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now I know that you are an NLP practitioner. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Tell us what that means.
Okay. So I always find it really hard to explain. So neuro-linguistic programming, it is basically the easy way for me to say it, and NLP experts will probably just cringe at me, but I just say we work with the unconscious mind to change behavioural patterns. And we do this through the language we use, as well as tools and techniques that we've been trained in. And what we're doing is working with the unconscious mind to release unwanted patterns. First, recognize them, release them, and also take accountability for our role in our own life or in our marriage. Or so there's a lot of people that blame everybody else for the way they are, and so we change that so they realize that you are your own boss, and if you have not taken responsibility for your actions, we release that so they have that realization. That's the easiest way for me to explain it. An
Okay.
NLP practitioner who teaches NLP will probably give you a completely different answer. But for me, that's how I explain it to people. It's like I work with your unconscious mind to release behaviors and patterns and recognize them and be able to change your habits and behaviors and patterns.
Okay. And I assume you use this like in your with your coaching clients, correct?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay. So give us like a real life example, because I'm a little bit familiar with NLP, but Erin, my producer, had never heard of it before.
Okay.
So there could be people out there that, this is a completely new concept to them. So can you give us like a real life example of how it's used?
Okay. Tony Robbins.
Yes, that's what I was telling Erin. I'm like, this is exactly what Tony Robbins does. And he's like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, yeah, this is literally how Tony Robbins does his work.
Yeah. So he's just a grandmaster at it.
Yes.
And a stage master and amazing at what he does.
Yes.
But pretty much Tony Robbins is a real life example of the NLP tools and techniques. As a client, to explain as a client, I've got one really good example. I had this great farming girl who just came to me saying, I'm just really unhappy in my life and I shouldn't be. I've got a fabulous life and a beautiful husband and great kids, and I love farming and everything's great. So why do I feel like this? And and what we found is that she was very judgy. And she didn't realize, and she would like get upset about other people's happiness.
Oh.
And once she took accountability of that, and we found it in the patterns that she was showing and the discussions we had, and she was able to change it, and it completely changed how she felt about her life. And then she started using the tools that I taught her to deal with anxiety, and then using tools and communication tools I taught her to be able to communicate better with her husband and kids. And she stopped getting angry at her kids, and she was able to just go, oh, it doesn't actually matter.
Yeah.
And so she just became happy again by releasing the unwanted patterns that she didn't realize she had. And once she recognized them, she could let them go and go, oh, I don't need to be like that anymore.
Right.
And her question was always, why was I like that? Why am I like that?
Yeah.
And she came up with some answers, but in the end, she sort of realized it didn't actually matter. It wasn't about the why and the past. It was about now releasing and working towards the future, that be the person you want to be. Yeah.
Oh. So is it safe to say we all have potentially negative patterns that are sort of affecting us like that?
Yeah, I definitely have some.
Yeah.
I'm working on mine all the time. Like, I'm coaching someone and then I go, oh, I need to do something about that myself. Like there's things that come up and I'm like, I need to work on that. Yeah. So definitely. And, when we do the training, we get a lot of coaching when we're being trained. So So the things that came up for me, I was like, wow, I've got to release that. I didn't realize I had that. I didn't realize that was affecting me or stopping me from moving forward. So,
Right.
yeah, there's definitely.
So how do we uncover, I have, this is a two-part question. The first part is, how do you uncover the negative patterns that you're running?
Okay, good question. Basically, you recognize them. So the process I go through with the coaching, and then we do things like values elicitation. So we find our values, and then we find our patterns of behavior. Like, I've got someone I'm coaching at the moment who says, I'm always angry. It's a guy. Like, I'm so angry. And he's realized that things from his childhood have affected him his whole life, that he was like, no, my childhood was great. What are you talking about? It's like, were you angry as a kid? Yeah. Well, did you get lots of attention? No, I was always fighting for attention. And he was like, oh. And then that started turning into the memories, and then that started turning into, now I see the pattern.
Right.
I don't need to be angry about that anymore.
Yeah. So that's the second part of my question is, once you uncover a negative pattern, how do you release it?
Yeah, okay. So we do something called timeline therapy.
Okay.
And then that we actually release the negative emotions without having to go into traumatic events, which is what's really good about it. So a lot of people have traumatic events, but we say to them, we're not going into those. If you have a traumatic event, we need to know that you've had one. We don't need to go into it. We don't need to revisit that and relive it.
Yeah.
And so we go way, way back to what comes out of their imagination, basically. And we release those negative emotions. I did it with a guy yesterday who gets really angry, and we released anger. And during the process, we go through and say, through the process, it's like, is the emotion there? Can you feel it? And he's like, yes. And, and then it's like, by the time we finish the process, is the emotion there? And he's like, can't feel it. And then once you get to that point, so you keep going until you get to that point. And once they can't feel it, then you future test, and you go out into the future in their mind, and they say, if something came up for you where you felt really angry, normally, if you go out to the future and imagine that scenario, do you feel the emotion? And they say no, you know that it's worked. If they say yes, then we go back and redo it. And so we basically future pace for them to be able to release that. Now, it doesn't mean that you never feel anger again or any other emotion, because you can't get rid of them. They're in us for a reason.
Yeah.
But what it does is it stops the triggers that usually set you off on that path of anger or sadness or guilt. Or there's a lot of women that feel really guilty all the time, guilty about doing something for themselves. Have you ever done that, Holly? Yeah.
Never. No, never, ever, ever. I don't have mom guilt. I don't have, guilt over doing anything for myself ever.
Well, that's great. Don't believe you.
Yeah.
I still get it. And I go, why am I feeling guilty about that? I chose to do this, not this, so I don't need to feel guilty. So, yeah, it's about doing that sort of stuff. Yep.
Have you read the book, The Body Keeps the Score?
No, but I've heard of it.
Okay. Well, I think you'll still be able to relate to this. When I read that book, it's a lot about what we're talking about today, like the connection between traumatic events and our emotions, and how that sort of manifests in physical ailments and things like that. But one of my biggest takeaways from that book was, oh my goodness, we are all entering into relationships with so much stuff, so much, I don't know if it's correct to call it baggage, but just a lot of history, a lot of trauma, a lot of emotional baggage coming into relationship with other human beings. And it's like somehow we are supposed to make all the pieces of that puzzle fit together in a harmonious way. And, I'm a divorce lawyer, so I'm not very shocked about people, breaking up. But after I read that book, I was like, how has any marriage ever worked? If we're all, coming into these relationships with so much unresolved trauma, basically. What do you say to that?
Oh my God, it fascinates me. This is my favorite part of the whole thing. I've got a fascination with the way people's minds work and the way they bring behaviors into a relationship because, you know, I've been divorced, you're a divorce lawyer.
Yeah.
I've worked with divorced people, you work with divorced people. Like, you see it. They go from loving each other to just,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it gets really ugly.
It sure does.
And so what I see in patterns is we bring the patterns from our childhood, the way we're brought up, good or bad. There's always something there that where we feel bad about something or something didn't happen for us, and it's an insecurity. So basically, and a trauma. So a lot of people come into a relationship going, "Oh, I found the right guy. Oh my God, he's amazing. He's amazing. I'm going to be happy now."
Yeah.
And that's like a really bad way to look at having a relationship because you go into it, and of course, the first couple of years, you're only seeing the positives of that person. You start noticing little things that annoy you. Yeah. And then by year 4 or 5, you're like, oh, fuck. You know?
My sentiments exactly. My only like thing in my brain was like, wow, a couple of years before you notice anything bad. I feel like it's much quicker than that.
Yeah, might even be quicker than that. But
yeah.
It's like, and you know, the behaviours aren't even necessarily bad. They're just not what you would do or suited to you. Or and then the best part is we throw kids in the mix. And amazing.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. Oh yeah. Then we're just like, exponentially complicating things. Yeah. Yes.
So we throw kids in the mix. And women go through something called matressence. Have you heard of that?
No.
Oh, see, this fascinates me as well. I only learnt this last year. So matressence is what we go through when we're having children. So, you know, we go through adolescence.
Oh, yes.
And we're trying to discover who we are and, you know, all of that. And when we're growing and our hormones are changing and we sort of start becoming this person that we are, what we like doing for work, hobbies, etc. We become this person. And then we have children and all our independence is gone because we now have to look after these babies and we're 100% reliable for their survival.
Right.
And suddenly we can't go to the toilet on our own.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
We can't do a hobby. And if it's not the kids in the toilet with us, it's the dog or the cat or, you know, like.
That's very true.
We can't, we can't do these things on our own. And then we're used to getting up and having a routine and the routine is gone and we're getting no sleep. And that's called matrescence. It's when we're trying to find ourselves again and who are we? Who are we as a woman now that we're mothers? Yes. And the other part is our husbands, and we forget about them. They're actually suffering as well because they're watching their lover turn into a mother.
Yes. And that's just not nearly as sexy.
So not sexy. And she goes from flitting in the house after work going, hey, babe, let's go for a run together to having spew all over her, tired, in a tracksuit pant with no bras on, probably undies that are 2 days old because she hasn't had a chance to have a shower. And she's like, get your own fucking dinner. You know?
That's right.
Like, yeah. Yeah, sorry. Am I allowed to swear? I'm a bit of a swear.
Yes.
So, you know, those are the things that, like, and the men go, whoa, what happened to my beautiful wife?
Yeah.
And she's like, go away. Don't touch me.
Yes.
I'm sick of being touched all day.
Right. Yeah.
And then she's like, who am I? That's not me.
Right.
And then and she goes through that cycle. And so that is something we really need to teach to our men, the what happens to women. And we need to teach it to them before they have children.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So they know what they're getting into.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because it can be really disheartening for the men as well. And so they do their best to keep loving us. And quite often we push them away.
Yeah.
And we don't realise we're actually pushing them away.
Right.
And so then the men are like, I'm lonely.
Yeah.
The women are like, well, I don't care because look what we've got. We've got these 3 kids or whatever, and we're busy, and you're at work, and I'm trying to work, and we've got kids, and we become a what is it, like a team in a workplace.
Right. Yeah.
A family team.
Right.
Instead of lovers that have fun together.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned like educating the men better, but do you think women need to do better in terms of, you know, maybe not being in that mother role 24/7 and recognizing like they still do need to be a lover? Or where do you stand on that?
I think we do need to recognise that, definitely, and I think women have to play their part in not treating their husbands badly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of women that end up divorced who are just treating their husbands so badly.
Yeah.
And I don't think they realise it, because what they want is they want their husbands to feel their pain.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not fair. You
Right.
can't, like if someone is in pain, do you want to inflict that on someone else?
Right. Yeah.
And I think they go through postnatal depression. Not everyone, obviously, but a lot of women will go through that. And a lot of women just are tired, and they want their husbands they want to inflict some of that pain onto them, because the husband still goes to work when they're not. The husband still goes to tennis or whatever his hobby is.
Yeah.
Cricket. What do you do over there? Football.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have football
Yes.
here, but different to you.
Yeah.
Baseball, over there. And so, and they're like, well, what about me and my hobbies?
Right.
And so really it just is a conversation for how can we as a team make sure that everyone gets to do something they want to do, and we still get time and love for each other.
Right.
And it's harder for a woman, because when she has a break from the kids, quite often she wants peace, not to be thrown into the sack with a husband, or having to do things for him. She thinks it's for him, when really it should be with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I try and teach. But usually the people that come to me are way past that stage. So the best thing is, when you're newlyweds, come to me then and get the tools. Get the tools and the techniques and the guidance then, and deal with the traumas.
Right.
I don't know how much time we got, but I really want to say I heard something we have a radio station over here called Triple J. And it's more of a young person's kind of radio, which of course I listen to because I'm so young. And
Yes.
and I the other day they were talking about, it was called micro cheating.
Oh.
And I was like, what is micro cheating? What a load of bullshit, And what it is like people getting upset and jealous when their partner looks at another, say, the girl's getting upset because their partner looked at another girl walking down the street. It's like, that's micro cheating. Don't look at her. Or you can't ever talk to an ex, or if you've got a female friend, you can't be friends with her anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, relationships are too complex for that, Holly. Like you can't control someone like that and stop someone from having friendships and looking. They're a guy, they're going to look at a girl with a nice boobs. It's just simple. It's
That's
just,
right. Yes.
I mean, I look at hot men. I don't
Yes,
deny it.
I look at boobs too.
Yeah, I look at boobs too.
And if my husband's with me, I'm like, hey, did you see those?
Exactly. Like, and it's I don't know if it's just these insecurities that people have. And then people leave the relationship, and they're like, and then the insecurity is, why do people keep leaving me? It's like, you need to give people freedom.
Yeah.
There's definitely, you've got to have boundaries, but there's got to be freedom. There's got to be, like, let people be themselves around you. Otherwise, if a guy can't say to me, wow, she's got nice boobs, she's got a nice rack, or in Australian terms, she's got nice tits or a nice rack as we walk down the beach.
Yeah.
And he has to hide it from me. Then what else is he hiding?
Yeah. So I'm like trying to hold in my chuckles so much, because when you started talking about how, men treat women are just treating their husbands badly, I am reflecting back to a post I saw on Instagram around Valentine's Day, and it was like, Valentine's gift guide for your husband. And it was like, stop being an angry bitch. Your man doesn't want, the Louis Vuitton belt. He doesn't want the, North Face parka. Like, just stop being an angry bitch. Like, that's what he wants. And I was cracking up, but also I was like, that is so true. I mean, in my practice as a divorce lawyer, I represent, more men than women. So granted, I'm probably hearing more of one side of it than the other. So I accept that. I recognize that. But I think that this is a problem. How we as women are treating husbands. It's not great.
Oh, it's huge. It is a big problem. And I'm the same as you. Like I deal with both, but at the moment I've actually got more men than women. And there's definitely men out there that are terrible the way they treat their partners.
Of
and
course,
I'm not saying there's a lot of, and there's, a lot of domestic violence and things like that. But
yes.
as a general rule, like I even see it with my friends, the way they speak to their husbands just on a daily, they treat them like they're little children.
Yes.
And if they treat them like they're little children. Yeah. And then so the men just wait to be told what to do. And the women go, why can't he just think for himself?
Right.
So, it's finding that line where the confidence, you've got to help a man keep his confidence and feel good about himself. If you want a guy to do things for you, he needs to feel good about himself as well.
Right.
And he needs to know that when he does things for you, you appreciate it.
Right. Yes.
And so women, I think once we have children, we become controlling. It's just a natural progression for us because we're trying to control the family and the children, and they've got to be at school and they've got to be here and they've got to be there. So you need to control your day. And so then you start controlling your husband without really realizing you're controlling him.
Right. Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's bad.
Okay, so this has been a great conversation. I could talk about this for a long time because, I similar to you, it sounds like I really think it's so fascinating to look at the relationship dynamics, look at the patterns that people are bringing into a relationship. I'm always seeing it on the back end when the relationship is being dissolved. But in closing, for my last question, if you just had to give people one tip to improve a relationship, what would you say?
Oh, which one will I choose? There's so many.
I know.
What would I say? I would say look at each other with curiosity. If your relationship feels like it's stagnant, whatever, use curiosity and ask yourself, why am I behaving like this? Not why are they behaving like that? I think if you can look at the relationship with curiosity, if they're behaving in a way that you don't like, look at that with curiosity and then ask yourself, why am I behaving the way I'm behaving?
Yeah.
And then communicate with each other. Okay, 2 tips. Communicate with each other in a way that is without judging the other one's opinion or telling them what they should be thinking or doing. So curiosity, no judgment. And then discuss what's going on and try and work something out. Or just come and see me,
Yes, there we go.
There we go. Book in a call if you can't figure it out.
Right. Well, I always am I give away information very freely, legal information, because I know that most people can't and won't do it on their own, even if they can,
Yeah.
And so it's yes, it sounds easy to just say, oh, I'm going to look at you with curiosity. But when you're freaking pissed, it's much harder. And sometimes you need the third party there to kind of coach you through those things, give you tools, give you resources to kind of have that be a smoother conversation. So we will make sure that everybody knows how to get in touch with you if they're interested in that. Yes. Yeah, Libby, thank you so much for being here. This was a great conversation.
Thank you. This is the first podcast I've done with America, so this is exciting.
Fun. Very good. Oh, fun.
Yeah. And I love your little background. You're very beautiful. Thank you, Holly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I've got just a little bit more to say. So sometimes I feel like in this last segment, which is really meant to kind of be like my takeaways from the episode, I feel like I repeat myself all the time. And so today, what I wanted to talk about in I've Got More to Say is how it's so beneficial to, again, look inside ourselves, hold the mirror up, take personal responsibility, and do what Libby said, which is, approach things with curiosity and ask yourself, why am I behaving like this? And maybe how has my behavior maybe caused a reaction from my partner that I don't love? So that's what I wanted to say, but that's very repetitive, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's so important. The concept of personal responsibility and to understand how our actions are really the only thing we can ever control, but it does have a ripple effect. And so we just need to be very intentional about how we are thinking and acting and perceiving a situation. And I know you can do that because, of course, you were made for more.